All right, sir, would you tell us your name and DOC number?
Donald Tate, 312-999.
All right, Mr. Tate. Let me acknowledge the folks who are joining us today. We have Terrence Dawson, Ivana Dandridge, Kimberly Tate, and Farrell Tate. And Ms. Kimberly will be speaking on your behalf, and we'll ask her to do so at the appropriate time. First, I'm going to read some information into the record, and Mrs. Jackson will take the lead on the parole interview. And then we'll hear from the warden, and then we'll hear from your family before we vote. So, Mr. Tate, you're classified as a 5th felony offender. You're currently serving a 20-year sentence for false communication with intent to cause emergency response as a habitual offender. You have a parole eligibility date, which is March 18 of 2024. You have an adjusted good time date, March 23rd, 2038. Does all that sound correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Would you answer Mrs. Jackson, please?
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Fine. Yes, ma'am.
Nervous? Look a little nervous.
Yes, ma'am.
How about this? How about I start off with some easy questions just to get you over your nervousness?
Yes, ma'am.
How old are you?
I'm 53.
And how long have you actually served on this charge? I mean,
4 years and 4 months.
And how long have you been housed where you are right now?
Since October of 21.
And where were you prior to that?
Excuse me?
Where were you before you came to where you?
I was in Concordia Parish.
All right, so you were in the parish jail for how long before you got transferred?
Around 2 years, close to 2 years.
So first, let's talk about the charge. Tell me what happened in this case.
Me and my girlfriend was into an argument.
What's your name?
Ma'am?
What's your name?
Natasha McGee.
All right.
We was into an argument and I left, and when I come back, she had another guy there. We got into a fight and he pulled a gun, but I never saw it. I called the police and reported it. And by me not seeing the gun, it was a lie, and that's how I end up here.
Was there any kind of altercation at the house?
Yes, me and Aswan McGee, we got into a fight.
That's a male?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. How does he have the same last name as Miss McGee?
Only coincidence.
McGee is a very common name in Franklinton, Louisiana.
Well, thank you for that. I did not know that. Okay. How did you gain access into Miss Tate's home?
Well, I lived there at the time, but when I got there,
well, are you sure you were living there at that time? Hadn't you stopped living there shortly before because of some prior incidences with Miss McGee?
No, ma'am. What it was, I got locked up. I was incarcerated earlier, and I got out. Once I got out, me and her lived there.
Had you had prior instances where the police have been called because of domestic violence allegations between you and Miss McGee?
Yes, ma'am.
So there was a history of domestic violence complaints between you and Miss McGee.
Yes, ma'am.
She said you hadn't lived there for several weeks because of a previous domestic abuse matter.
Yes, ma'am.
So you really weren't living there at the time.
Right, exactly. We was off and on, and
Well, how did you gain entry into her home that day?
when I got there, as one McGee was coming out, he opened the door. That's how we ended up fighting.
Okay. And why were you making so many 911 calls?
Because my phone kept dying on me at the time. I had a broken phone. It wasn't even activated at the time.
Well, what were you calling 911 about?
Because Aswan McGee had pulled a gun on me.
But I understand no gun was ever located when the police arrived.
Right, yes, ma'am.
And actually, when the police got there, you got arrested for something that had happened the day before, where you were arrested for aggravated. They arrested you for aggravated burglary and improper telephone communication that had happened the previous day, and so that they arrested you for that also, right?
No, ma'am, that's the same charge I'm on. They amended the charges.
You were found guilty of home invasion.
Right, I was found not guilty of home invasion.
That's right, and found guilty of false communications upon emergency response.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you had 2 domestic violence charges pending at the time, and those charges ended up being dismissed because you had gotten convicted on the charges that you're serving time for now. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I think it's finally clear to me now. So you're classified as a 5th offender.
Yes, ma'am.
And you got priors for forgery, simple burglary, simple robbery, and you've been on supervision, both parole and probation. And every time you got revoked, you did not perform well.
Yes, ma'am.
Agree with that?
Yes, ma'am.
So help me understand and the board understand why you've had so much trouble on your prior periods of supervision. Why were you able to successfully complete any period of supervision?
Honestly, drugs and anger problems.
Let's talk about it. Start with the drugs.
Ma'am.
I said, let's talk about those 2 things. Let's start with the drugs.
Yes,
what
ma'am.
was the drug issue?
Once I came home from Desert Storm, I got hooked up on crack cocaine, and I was been struggling with it ever since.
Let's stop right there. When were you in the military?
I was in the military from 1990 to like 92 until I got incarcerated the first time. I was in the Army Reserve.
What did you get arrested for in 92?
The forgery.
And what was that about?
Just getting hooked on drugs and went and stole a checkbook and wrote some checks.
When did, where were you deployed in 90, 91? Where were you deployed?
I was deployed into Desert Storm, Operation Desert Storm.
So you actually went to Iraq?
Yes, ma'am.
How long were you there?
Approximately 5 to 6 months.
And then where did you go?
I came back to stateside. I come back to Franklinton, which is my unit was in Bogalusa, 344 maintenance.
Well, what happened in the 5 months that you were in Iraq that would lead you into drug use?
Just knowing that I was there for one thing, and the heat, just hearing explosions over my, just, you know, it was, I don't know, I was young, just made it into the military.
How old were you?
Like 20.
Okay. And what kind of discharge did you receive from the military?
Honorable.
You received an honorable discharge?
Yes, ma'am.
In spite of your arrest while you were still in the military?
Yes, ma'am.
So tell me about your crack cocaine use. How did that develop and what did it progress to?
It progressed. It started from drinking. Just when I came home, I started hanging with friends that I went to high school. We are not knowing, naive to what was going on, you know, with the street life, and got hooked on crack, and it just led to me just doing crazy stuff, trying to support my habits.
Well, how often were you using?
Daily.
How were you paying for it?
I was just, like I said, just doing crazy stuff any kind of way I could.
Jen, were you employed? Did you have a job?
No, ma'am, not at that time I didn't.
Did you ever have a job?
Now,
After getting out of the military, did you have any kind of real job?
after getting out of the military, yes, ma'am. After I was incarcerated, I come home and I started working. Yes, ma'am.
Doing what?
I was working at the time it was called Burst Feed Mill. I stayed there for a while, and I took over my brother's job at Kennedy's Decorating Center in Louisiana, and then I ended up back incarcerated.
What kind of substance abuse treatment have you had either in or out of prison?
In 2014, I went to Blue Waters in Richwood Correctional Center.
How long were you in Blue Waters? How long was that program?
I think it was like 6 to 9 weeks, 6 to 9 months or something like that.
How long did you actually stay? You remember?
I completed it.
Okay. But when you got out, you went back to drug use. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Why do you think you did that?
Because at the time I was there only to just because the court sentenced it to me and I had it, had it completed. Actually, I wasn't serious about it at the time. I really wasn't.
Appreciate your honesty about that. What about your anger? Tell me about that. What do you think the source of your anger?
I think that goes back to my childhood, the way I was raised, not from my family or whatever, but in the neighborhood, in the environment that I was in, we was basically always having to fight to protect ourselves. And it basically like just grew on me. So.
Did I see that in 2021, you completed a domestic violence intervention program?
Yes, ma'am, and it was very helpful for me. That was
Talk to me about it.
That was a program that really just kicked everything off for me. It took me back to my childhood.
Let me ask.
And in that time, that's what, I learned a lot about myself.
Tell me some of the things you learned about yourself.
I'm afraid of disappointing people, especially my family. And I mean, I come up, I'm the baby of 11 of us. And
how do you think that related to your issues with domestic violence?
I'm really not sure on that particular point, but I know that it did have a lot to do with, I know my anger issues. So, and.
What kind of things make you angry?
Rejection. As long as I'm being scared of being alone. Scared of failure.
So what did they teach you to help you cope with those feelings?
Well, they taught me basically to look within myself, and also to just talk about it. That's a big thing of mine was trust issues, trust in people. And even my family just, because I was raised like, not to show a sign of weakness. And by me expressing myself, that was basically a sign of weakness. So I learned that I had to trust people and become vulnerable so that I can talk to people and express myself and get feedback, from people that care about me.
Domestic violence is really a control issue.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you agree with that?
Yes, ma'am, 100%.
You are probably going to have other relationships in your life because you are going to get out of jail one day.
Yes, ma'am.
And how do you think how will you be different in relationships now than you were when this incident happened?
It would, as of right now, I'm not even interested in a relationship. I'm interested in me getting better. Once I'm released from here, I'm going to the VA clinic and see what other programs they have available for me. I'm not done. I'll never be done. This has got to be a way of life for me with these programs and stuff.
In your domestic violence prevention program, did you learn anything about how the other person, how your issues affects the one who is on the receiving end?
Yes, ma'am.
Your control. Tell us about that.
Basically, I have to sit back and not just have to be all about me. Being selfish, I got to understand the next person and hear them out. And if I can't hear them out, then there will always be issues like that. And because it's not, like I said, it's not about me all the time. It's about the other person.
And did you learn that sometimes some relationships just aren't healthy?
Yes, ma'am. Exactly. Yes, ma'am.
And so what should happen if the relationship's not healthy?
Then it's time to move on. It's just time to move on. It's plain and simple. There's no reason to just keep pushing and forcing yourself on somebody that doesn't want to be in a relationship or doesn't know how to be in a relationship or whatever. It's just
so you understand now that you can't force your will on another person.
Right, exactly. Yes, ma'am.
I see that you have completed some good programs. You have children?
Yes, ma'am.
How many?
I have 2,
How old?
33 and 30.
What kind of relationship do you have with your children?
It's in a relationship, it's strained, but we do communicate.
Why do you think it's strained?
Because of their disappointment in their father, period. Being in and out of their lives, I mean, and I fully understand it now. I know I'm sorry that it took so long. I apologize to them, but I mean, it took me all of this happening here for me to really and truly understand and grasp the extent of the damage that I've done, not only to myself, but to my family, the community, everybody.
Tell me about your NYSER certificates.
Ma'am?
Tell me about your NCCER certifications.
Yes, ma'am. That's been a big bright spot in my life. I mean, getting those certificates, and tomorrow I'll be finishing the course and everything, so I'll be graduating that soon.
What kind of certificates are you going to be receiving?
My welding degree.
And what are your plans if you are successful? What are your plans going forward?
My plans going forward is to first to come home and just get in touch with my parole officer and things of that nature, and try to find me a job. It doesn't have to be in welding out the dump. I know that it's gonna take a while finding work, but once I find work, then maybe as time goes on, I can find a job that I really want to do, and that is welding. So I will be looking for a welding job, but I gotta have some type of income.
Who would you live with upon release?
Upon release, I'll be living really by myself.
How so?
I'll be living in family's house, and we have air property, and I'll be living in one of those homes.
What about the VA? Where's the closest VA facility near you?
Ma'am, excuse me?
Where's the closest VA facility?
It's in Bogalusa.
Okay. And what kind of services will you be seeking from the VA?
Mental health, drug programs, anywhere I can find meetings and drug meetings, AANA meetings, just anger management problems, classes, all of that. And I'm pretty sure that they do have those, so.
Are you willing to take all of those programs that they offer to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Tate, are you tired?
I'm very tired. Very tired, and I'm also humbled. This experience here has really humbled me. I mean, I've lost 5 siblings in the last 4 years since I've been incarcerated. This has really humbled me.
Warren, any comment?
Well, Donald just told you he graduates from the 2-year VOTEC class tomorrow. They'll finish that up. He's been here 2 years.
And no disciplinary issues at all?
No, ma'am, no write-ups, but after the 2nd month here, he went into that class, and he's been in that education class at VOTEC Welding for the duration. He has no write-ups while he was here.
Okay. All right. That's all I have.
Thank you. We have Ms. Kimberly Tate who wants to speak. Ms. Tate. You have to unmute your microphone.
Good morning. This is I'm Donald's sister Kimberly, and I wanted to speak on his behalf because I know that he's a good person. He always has been. He's just always got in contact with the wrong friends or the wrong girl. But I think he's older now, and he would really do well having a chance to live the rest of his life. I think he's learned. It's taken a long time, but I do believe that he's rehabilitated and ready to just experience a good life with his brothers and sisters that's left, because we've had quite a few that died while he was away. And his children and grandchildren are getting older. And he understands that life is not a party, it's real. So I think he would be a good candidate for release, because he understands life is fleeting and he's getting older and he's not the young person he used to be anymore.
All right, well, thank you. All right, Mr. Tate, is there a statement you'd like to make to the panel before we vote?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to apologize to Natasha and to the community, my sisters and brothers. I'd just like to apologize to them because I really didn't understand the impact that my actions had caused.
Well said. I think we're ready to vote. Mrs. Jackson?
Mr. Tate, I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Yes.
You displayed a lot of insight into a lot of issues that have brought you here. You have worked very hard in programming to address those issues. I'm particularly glad that you went through the domestic violence intervention program, and that you work towards getting a trade. I just think you're ready, and I'm willing to take a chance on you. So my vote today would be to grant your early release at the conditions that you report to the VA office and sign up for all of the services that they offer for you, that you are to attend at least 2 AA or NA meetings per week for the duration of your supervision, and to report immediately as you're required to do to probation and parole to get signed. That's my vote.
Mr. Freeman?
I concur 100% with Ms. Jackson. I think the light bulb has went off, and I pray that it has. You're back in a lot of time, and this will probably be your last opportunity at having a great and successful life. The only thing I would add is that you have a curfew from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. If you need to work, talk with your probation officer.
All right, and Mr. Tate, I did enjoy listening to the conversation today. You did a very good job. I enjoyed listening to your sister. My vote is the same, with the same special conditions. So you've been granted parole today. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Warden, that concludes our business. We will sign off. It's 11:23. Thanks for having us today.
Thank you. Y'all have a nice day.